A patron reached out to me with a question. Could you give me some ideas on world building, sandbox survival, and post-apocalyptic themes? There's a lot to chew on there, so let's get into it. Let's break it down word for word. We'll begin with world building, then go into sandbox. Then I'll combine survival, post-apocalyptic together, and delve into that. I'll offer a few points to guide you along the path of world building. In the end, I hope you're inspired to make your own world, and you're able to go about the process with confidence, because you'll know what needs to be in that world to make it interesting, and most importantly, fun. World building is often overwhelming, but it doesn't have to be. We may look for inspiration, the worlds that have already been built and those that built them. Westeros, Middle-earth, Dune, Forgotten Realms, Eberron, Tal'Dorei, Azeroth, Oz, Hyboria, Narnia. The list is endless. You have the big boys like Tolkien's Middle-earth, and the lesser known, at least globally, such as Eberron. If you're looking to folk that are on a much smaller scale than the likes of Tolkien and Herbert, I'd offer up Brandon Sanderson, an author that I think is among the best world builders today. The problem with looking to that inspiration and thinking on the world scale is comparison. Can your efforts live up to what Tolkien did? Will your world be mentioned in the same sentence as Forgotten Realms? Regardless of your ambition and where you wish to go with your world-building efforts, I'd encourage you to shrink things down. I live by this quote, which I've made up by twisting a quote from Napoleon Hill. Small things done greatly lead to great things. When you build your world, focus on the hamlet. Focus on the hill, the peak of that single mountain and that strange whirlpool out there in the vast sea. Who lives there? Why? What do they think? Let's take this hamlet thing a bit further to illustrate the point. You want fire, demonic invasions, gods fighting titans, prehistoric world-ending serpents that swallow the coasts, and a war between dwarves and elves, with one side going to the Dragon King Orc Champion for aid. I want to talk about the hamlet of Garen, population 17, with the farmer Wendell as the focus NPC. Wendell provides most of the hamlet's food, and as he's the only one with any sort of adventuring experience and in possession of the finest sword, he's also the hamlet of Garen's lone guard. When Wendell has a problem, the hamlet has a problem. Notice what we've already done. We've shrunk it down to two things, the hamlet of Garen and the NPC Wendell. I don't need to know the details of the mountain pass where the elves fought the dwarves, nor the details of the 11 invasion portals that the Baelor generals intend to use, nor the details of 9,000 years of history speaking about why tieflings are hated in the southern regions. I just need to know how arable the land is in and around Garen. What happens during winter? Where else do they get food if those lands don't produce as usual? As for Wendell, what happens when he's sick? What do the other 16 residents of Garen think of it? Does someone else offer to take up the sword, pacing the single road that snakes through the hamlet late into the night, allowing Wendell to get some much-needed rest? Notice what else we've done. When the lone guard of Garen is out sick, PCs have an automatic hook. There's a reason to bring about the random encounter because it can happen while they were on watch. If we know that Wendell is sick, we start to ask questions about faith, religion, shrines, chapels, cathedrals, and divine magic. Is it merely bed rest that's needed to cure Wendell, or magical healing, or the casting of lesser restoration? Is there a hidden cleric in the hamlet, laying low to not draw the attention of a dark god he once cursed? Notice how some answers can't be found within the hamlet itself. If there's no divine magic present in Garen, we need to look elsewhere. We start asking, where is the closest church that has an actual priest capable of helping Wendell? Maybe it's only in the city. How far is that city? Could Wendell make it there? Can someone else fetch the medicinal herbs and other reagents needed to help Wendell? Notice how we have another adventure hook. The PCs can fetch that stuff. It also asks questions that need answers. What's the city called? What kingdom is it in? Who runs it? What individual or faction? The game begins and the circle is set in motion, all because we need to address the needs of the farmer Wendell in his little 17-person hamlet. Focus your world building for the game, not the book. The problem with thinking in Middle-earth terms for a D&D campaign is that Tolkien did it before D&D was ever a thing. It is completely different to design a world for a novel than it is for a game. People play the game, and in that you have mechanics to consider, such as rules, and a bunch of moving parts that you can't predict because the story is not entirely your own. The people playing in the world shape it, and you must allow them to. That moves us into Sandbox.
I'm impressed.
I got these too.
I'll give you my take on the difference between theme park and Sandbox. For theme park, we'll think Disneyland or World of Warcraft. The attractions, also known as the interesting bits and fun, are set in place. You move around the world enjoying these attractions. As with Disneyland, if you go back to the same place many times, you'll have your preferences of which areas are more worthy of your time. For murder hobo sorts of PCs, this would be the place where they can get into the most fights and gain the most combat experience. They'll spend more time in crypts, dungeons, haunted places, and cracked fields overrun by fiendish beasts than they will in cities focused on intrigue and deception. That's a few bits on theme park. For Sandbox, let's look to those crypts, dungeons, haunted places, and fiendish fields. In a world such as this, the PCs venture into a haunted region, but they don't notice it at first. There aren't ghosts roaming around through bloodstained ruins with crows cawing atop scarecrows under an eerily glowing moon. Instead, the world is left much more open. The local tavern has stories of an old cemetery up yonder, just over the hill. Tombstones are gone, and you might find a bit of dug-up dirt and a few cracked pieces of stone. The PCs are given holy relics, and a wacko priest of some sort intends to tag along as an NPC. The NPC, holy relics, and rumors about the region are tools. With those tools, the PCs set out and discover things. If you throw bunches of wraiths and ghosts at them, then maybe it is haunted. If you give a PC or two a curse, then maybe it is haunted. However, if all they find are the remnants of some family of witches that were hastily run out of the place, and now all that's there is a bunch of bandit goblins taking advantage of tourists, then you have a different thing. In a sandbox, you offer tools, but it's the PC's interests and makeup of the party that sort of decides how a place is built. Which is right? That's for you to decide. If your group is distracted easily, there's no clear leader, and I mean player, not PC, then perhaps theme park is the way to go. It ensures you have interesting bits at each turn. Again, keep it small and shrink it, but you can easily create interesting theme park sorts of experiences with exhaustive detail by simply focusing on a 30-mile region. Why 30 miles? It covers all the places the PCs might be interested in going to within a single day of travel.
Good, didn't it? I get you up though. Oh shit!
Oh shit, man. Oh shit. Hey, I need some help.
If you want to play on the PC's backgrounds and backstories, perhaps keep it Sandbox. If you want to give the PCs carte blanche, so long as they don't break the system, then perhaps keep it Sandbox. The final talking points I'll make about Sandbox are this. Sandbox, at least for me and how I create, is often based on the people and monsters, how they think, how they speak, languages spoken, rumors, superstition, myths, legends, and all their little details, how and what they eat, how they dress, culture and society, those sorts of things. When I create with a sandbox perspective, I don't think about structure, landmarks, buildings, interesting locales, giant spider-infested forests and such. I have a blank canvas with no place to live. I just plop a guy with problems down onto the blank canvas, start asking questions, and through answers, I start to build the place around that guy. In theme park, the places are often there first, for the living, breathing things to explore it. In Sandbox, the explorers come first. They wander and don't know what they might find up ahead and along that road. Neither do you if you happen to be the DM, but therein is the beauty of it. Take lots of notes and listen to your players and the decisions they've made for their PCs. Allow them to tell the story. I'll summarize with this. There's no right or wrong way, and I often use a mix of both. I'll let you chew on that for a bit. This is a specific request, but I was asked about inspirations and my approach to such a world. The obvious stuff will come first. For movies and TV, you have Walking Dead, I Am Legend, World War Z, Mad Max, both the original and the new one, Hunger Games, Maze Runner, Divergent, Book of Eli, A Quiet Place, Bird Box, Terminator, Planet of the Apes, and the entire row of newly added stuff to Netflix. For games and books, you have The Stand and The Road. You know, for books, just do a search for the movies mentioned, and you'll usually find the book or graphic novel that it was based on. As for games, you have Left 4 Dead, Last of Us, Rage, Fallout, Stalker, and Resident Evil. Now remember, as we're talking about survival and post-apocalyptic themes, and though I've referenced movies and books, we're building a setting here that's intended to be played in. And that brings up a very important point. When folk use the word play, they think fun. Whereas post-apocalyptic and survival themes are often the exact opposite of that. They're the last place you'd want to be. So let's take a closer look at that. First off, to ensure that your players are venturing through a world that's not a lot of fun, one thing you can do is give them no choice. Don't mix an area such as the height of the Roman Empire with a post-apocalyptic region. Sure, you can have kingdoms in your world with vastly different levels of social structure and quality of life, but if players and PCs have access to high-quality food, silks, fancy clothing and textiles, entertainment, intrigue, and Ravnica-style guilds of ninjas, spies, and invention, no one will want to go to your shitty space where everyone is starving and wants to steal your stuff. So either make the entire world a vast wasteland of suck, or do something else entirely. This doesn't mean you have to go all hopeless, despair, and terrible. A game where every single village is Barovia gets old quick. A game where bandits and marauding waves of NPCs that grossly outnumber your PCs, that keep taking their magic items you just gave to them, that gets old quick as well. In these sorts of dark, gritty, and hopeless settings, you can always have some points of light. Here's the thing with those. They have to matter to your PCs. I think the best you can do when starting a post-apocalyptic game, whether using Dark Sun or making your own setting, is to send out a primer. Introduce the PCs to the world and ask them one simple question. What's important to your character? Focus on that and you can create hope. If one halfling is fond of pie and food, the smell of bread, like when you first walk into the bakery section of Costco, coming from a rundown inn in a post-apocalyptic world is enough to get that halfling on board with whatever you've got going on in the region. On the level of importance, be careful of creating a post-apocalyptic world in a game system that seems opposed to that. On the level of importance, be careful of creating a post-apocalyptic world in a game system that seems opposed to that. It's tough to do. I can't say for sure, but I'd imagine some part of Dark Sun being pushed aside as an official 5e setting is because I don't think the system, as written, is built for it. Notice that we have Ravnica and Eberron thus far, and now Critical Role's Wildmount. The latter, I think, is based on a lot of the popularity of it, so it's an easy sell into the hobby. But the first two are sort of high magic, inventive, and work well with the long rest to heal everything, difficult to die via 3 death saves, spare the dying as a cantrip sort of thing. They fit with the 5th edition rule set. I know that doesn't help when you're trying to do two things. You're trying to make a post-apocalyptic setting, and you're trying to use the 5th edition D&D system. So I'll offer a few bits. First off, survival is everything, which is why the word is used interchangeably with post-apocalyptic. Focus on the stuff you'd see highlighted in a show like Man vs. Wild. The big 3. Food, safety, and shelter. Make it scarce. In a system where druids can cast Goodberry, and rations are part of every level 1 character starting kit, make a few changes. Goodberry can still function as written, it's just a level 4 spell now. Sorry, too bad. No pack in the equipment section of the player's handbook has rations in it. Make food a resource worth more than healing potions and magic items. Forget the entire section on wealthy and aristocratic food. It's a full-blown quest to find the legendary inn that serves water and hot stew. And that place is more well-guarded than a king's vault. In these cases, you're not mucking with the system. You're just making it fit within the setting. Roads aren't patrolled. There's more bandits than military out there, as folk can't afford to feed the military, and they certainly can't equip them with high levels of plate mail armor and such in a post-apocalyptic world. Also, environmentally, you have to stay on the roads, for venturing even a mile off the beaten path spells doom. When you have post-apocalyptic worlds and ideas such as concrete jungles and nature taking over, you don't just have plants, you have D&D plants that want to eat you. Look at the screenshots of Last of Us. Then imagine if all that overgrowth were Otyugs and stuff. Also for safety is the level of tension you can bring about when the PCs are the lucky ones. They're the ones that have a larger supply of water and food than most. Once you have a group of people that have something that's desired, especially for survival, safety is a major concern for that group, simply because they're in constant danger. Therein lies the main point. Have danger be a constant thing. It doesn't need to be TPK level of challenge, as that quickly becomes not only tiresome, but loses its importance, because if death is around every corner, PCs will eventually get a giant case of the fuck-its, because it just doesn't matter much anyway. When I say constant danger, I'm talking about going back to what's important to the PCs. Always threaten to take things they cherish away, even if it's just inconvenient stuff. This will also start to circle back around to the points of light sort of stuff. The smell of fresh bread coming from a nearby window. Give hope, otherwise it all just stays very dark and unfun. Latching on to that level of safety, let's talk the final point. Shelter. Folk are most comfortable at home. You can lock your doors, and the place is familiar to you. There's also the sort of taboo thing of you don't enter somewhere uninvited, which always offers a certain level of intimacy, privacy, and safety when you're within your space. Perhaps that's an ingrained territorial thing, which does work in a fantasy setting with orcs and dragons as well. It's the reason why ogres have giant poles with crude banners on top. They mark their space, and that alone provides a blanket of security because it deters those that are not fully committed to doing bad and stupid shit. In your post-apocalyptic setting, all residences, safe spaces, and common areas of hospitality are in ruin, set on fire, cursed, corrupted, and overrun by really horrible things, or just simply gone, leaving a smoking crater in its wake. Your tent is your sanctuary, and on that note, remove the one post-apocalyptic game-breaking spell of Liamon's tiny hut. You can't have that be a thing. In summary, when water and a single stick of jerky is more valuable than gold, you're onto something. When magic is either scarce or abundant, but wizards are being kidnapped to provide comforts that are beyond rare, you're onto something. When folk trade a magic sword for a horse, you're onto something. When your PCs come to the table with their PC and 2 characters as backup, you're onto something. The goal in a post-apocalyptic setting is to make it rough, bleak, and almost hopeless, but with enough sprinkling of, hey, you guys just won because you found a barrel of water. If you do that, you can still create very memorable sessions. A survival post-apocalyptic setting may not be the most fun setting to play in, but when we're talking fun, I don't think Saving Private Ryan. Though I don't find that movie entertaining, it's still one of the best movies I've ever seen. Thanks everyone for listening and watching. I'll talk to you soon, and take care.